All right, hey everybody out there. I see all you guys in chat and everything. Thank you so much, Ember, for the raid. If you're coming over from Ember's show, welcome. I hope you stick around. If you've never been here, I hope you like the show and maybe subscribe or something. That'd be great. But today I've got a guest, somebody who I just met recently and talked to a lot, and we had a lot of different things in common and stuff. I actually met through Robin, but Jeet, what's up, man?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Uh, and yeah, thanks, Robin, for introducing me to you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, yeah. I met you and Dawn. Apparently, you guys, at least at that time, was sitting down having conversations in the mornings and stuff. And um, I think I think Robin was interested in having you guys come on the political show, which she has kind of stepped back from for the time being. Not nothing. There's a there's a there's so much going on right now that people think that there's like this drama because of that or something, and there's not. Robin chose to step back from it, and that's her choice. But the we will continue on that with that show anyway. It'll be on Thursday at 1 o'clock. I've got a new co-host for you guys, and show up then and check that out. But I'm gonna say hi to a couple people in the chat real quick, and then we'll get into some stuff. So we got Justin's here and Robin's here. Hi, Robin. And Dawn's out there. And what is Liberatus Dragon? Al Trucker. Ember. Hi, Ember. Good to see you. Let's see. Who else? The Jeet Coons show, huh? Uh, I've seen some others. Bree and Jester and Let's Farm. All right. Uh, and it looks like we're 26 viewers at the beginning of the show. It's all downhill from here, guys. I'm just joking, but anyway, tell us a bit about yourself, Jeet. What you do and all that.
Oh, wow. Uh, so I guess I'm a father. I'm a husband. Uh, I'm retired, sort of, kind of. I'm on disability. I have some illnesses that I fell ill to several years ago. So I'm no longer working. And in trying to work, I'm trying to be productive. So in my productivity, I've started up my own channel and my own network. And obviously, through all those channels and stuff is how I met you. Um, so I think we're all kind of trying to do the same thing here, have a say, have a voice, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you do a show called the Jeet Koons Show, which I've put over. Is it Coon or Coon?
Kuhn, Jeet Kuhn Show. So I don't. I'll quickly. It's a reference to Bruce Lee and his Jeet Kune Do, his martial art and philosophy. I was a martial artist when I was younger. I was a big Bruce Lee fan. He was an idol of mine, and later on, learning about him and his life, and that he went to University of Washington and studied philosophy, and kind of came up with his own philosophical notions and incorporated it into his martial arts. I sort of adapted that idea and just turned that into what I call a variety show. Because Jeet Kune, well, maybe you don't know, Jeet Kune Do was the idea was kind of like flow. It's like Taoist mentality, go with the flow, do whatever, do what works kind of. So I thought a variety show adapted to that well. Um,
Yeah, well,
so
Bruce Lee's an interesting fella. But so how long have you been making content and stuff? How long has that been going on?
well, I've been posting stuff for years now, probably going on 2 years now. I still don't think I've brought the channel to what its original intentions were. I'm just kind of right now. I just use it as an outlet. I'm still kind of building framework and stuff around posting more regular content. I'd like to get into more, important topics and maybe academics and things like this. Right. A lot of my content right now is pretty much just creative stuff and or animals. So, because they're cool.
Yeah, and you hang about the Pangburn servers a lot, I guess, and take part in some of the stuff over there. Are you an atheist? I never even asked this question. I don't guess, but
I am. I consider myself an agnostic atheist.
right
Uh,
on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you made me be specific about it, I would say the same thing because I think because I think to be honest, you have to be an agnostic, whatever, right? Because nobody
We don't
really
know.
knows,
Yeah, we don't know.
and we don't have any way to really assess the supernatural. So you can even say, philosophically, you don't have a way of knowing. You probably never know, maybe. So there, even the various ways that people define agnostic, I think that you have to say that. But also at the same time, I feel like I feel the way about especially the religions that I've been presented with. I feel the same as I do about like the Smurfs or something. Like they're about as likely. And
Great show, The Smurfs. Let me tell you,
yeah, the
big
Smurfs
fan.
is at least entertaining. uh, but and with the Smurfs, if you don't do what Papa Smurf says, he embarrasses you. He doesn't make you burn in hell for an eternity. So there's that.
So, have you ever heard that the Smurfs was a metaphor for communism and capitalism, and that the Smurfs lived in communist society, and Mark Gargamel represented the evil, greedy capitalist?
Yeah, I have
Opportunist
heard that,
exploited.
and I think that's I think that actually tells part of the story, right? Because it's a bit of pareidolia. It's looking for patterns and things where none exist, and or maybe they do, but again, nobody knows that. It's obviously wasn't the Smurfs a Hanna Barbera thing?
Yeah, I don't recall who the artist was,
Yeah,
or who the creators were. That's a
yeah.
long time ago, man. But I loved the show. Let me tell you.
Well, and I mean, just because it was put out by Hanna Barbera, I guess doesn't mean that because I don't know that that's who created it necessarily.
Yeah, nor do
But
I.
because a lot of those things have interesting backstories that are quite a bit different, kind of like children's fairy tales and things, where it's like um, uh, I'm trying to think of
They
one that
sold
isn't
merch for a capitalist.
just isn't completely racist and stuff, but um, they they have these dark backstories. There
Sure.
was a guy that used to do a channel, and I can't remember what it's called now, but he went through and told the like creepy origins behind a number of children's fairy tales and songs and things like that, and it was quite interesting. Things like Pinocchio and stuff like that was had a dark backstory that was kind of crazy, but yeah, interesting stuff. So Bruce Lee, you say? I watched a thing recently too about Chuck Norris, his story of when him and Bruce Lee were living together and training together and all those things, and um, that the story was actually about Chuck Norris, I think, but it just included that part, and he was talking about how Bruce Lee was and stuff and everything, and that he told this story. He said that Bruce Lee never wanted to kick above the waist uh, because it didn't something about it didn't look good or something like that, and he they worked on it or whatever, and he started. Bruce Lee was famous for his like lightning fast kicks and stuff, and
Mm.
so it was just a cool story. But we talked about, of course, Enter the Dragon and all that, but Bruce Lee's a pretty interesting character, and neat story, and of course his son Brandon Lee and all that too. That's kind of like that Hollywood history stuff, but whatever, man. Anyway, so have you been getting around the atheist community quite a bit, and you watch a lot of other channels and stuff, or
I get around. I have about 100 Discord servers, and various. Yeah, I tend to kind of follow a lot of niche communities and support niche communities. It's part of the philosophy that I've kind of incorporated into my platform and my channel and stuff. Is this anti sort of sensationalism that everyone wants to try and capitalize on these days, which go into the human psyche and short attention spans and all these things that drive the attention economy, if you will.
yeah,
And I'm sort of kind of opposed to a lot of that stuff. My with my and Mike, I should throw my disclaimer out here. Like, I don't really debate people, and I don't try to tell people they're right or wrong or anything. I'll tell people how I feel about things. It doesn't mean that other people need to feel or understand or believe the way that I do. But yeah, that's just part of my platform, is that a lot of this kind of social media sensationalism stuff is overdone, and we need to focus on some more important things, I think. um,
yeah. I think there's a lot of I think I think there's a lot of purposeful distraction going on with some of that, and even into and sorry if I offend anybody with this, but even into with like professional sports and stuff. I think that it's not very does I mean, other than giving you something to do for a couple hours in front of the TV, not a very good use of time. Sorry, football fans.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I think, and I people will probably be mad at me for this too, but I equate it to the same thing as throwing bread to the people in the gladiatorium. Watching gladiators fight and kill each other. It's a distraction. It's the same thing. It's a distraction from things that we should probably be learning, doing, paying attention, being active in, rather than you know seeing the next sensational viral cat video, um, or ridiculous person bouncing around because it's funny. Um,
Yeah,
you know. But
yeah,
I
and
also know that's hard for a lot of people. That it's hard for a lot of people to get out of that cycle because maybe they're faced and confronted with not a great life.
yeah.
So I understand I think a good bit of the sides of it. So
One of the things that and this is, some of you may or may not know this about me, but I haven't, like, other than like if I'm sitting in a doctor's office or something and it's on or whatever, but I haven't watched like regular television in many years. I don't. I don't like the way that it's done, really, and also the advertising and stuff on TV. Just drives me up a wall because much of it's directed at children, and um, the psychological tricks and stuff that are included in advertising. Not to say that YouTube or any other place is completely absent of that, because, um, and well, we'll just talk about it now. The YouTube's I've noticed is getting into this thing where every ad that comes on YouTube now is AI, and it's I've been hit over and over and over with these Tai Chi ads that are just the most ridiculous things ever, and so I don't know. Maybe time to start getting the YouTube without the ads. But yeah, I don't like being constantly targeted for something, and again, not that other platforms and things are completely absent that, but I would say television, network television specifically, is really really bad for that. And I don't like someone constantly trying to trick me into buying some crap that I don't need, or you know. And again, I think it's gross that they target kids with a lot of that stuff, the psychological tricks and stuff. But whenever I learned about that stuff in psychology class in college, about how they use psychology in television and advertising and all that, once I started to recognize those things that I was taught and stuff, I was like, this is awful how it's done. And it's kind of similar to religion in a lot of ways. I mean, when you think about it.
I think you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
most people have adopted some just truths that they don't contest with. Um, and we want to call people who are religious or believe in God absurd in those ways, but I think it's not only in those areas. One of my, man, we could go off on many different topics, and maybe I'd pull you off in left field. I don't know, but like for instance, one of those things is using representation of value, money, capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism, that this is the only way to run things by many people's eyes and visions, even in countries today that are still very, or that are very, have very socialist underpinnings, still have, the markets that they can engage in. And some of them are even devolving today, but we don't need to go into that. But yeah, so it's just these truths that we accept because they have become so normal that we don't question why we do things the way that we do, you know. Um, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other set of topics that we could go down. But I don't know how far we want to travel down those roads.
Well, I mean, I don't really care where we go today. I just wanted to I wanted to bring you on. We had talked a couple times, and I had been trying to get you on the political show. And you had said, well, I don't even really talk about politics a whole lot. I don't care to, but um,
I
you know,
do, just differently. I think I engage with it differently than a lot of people do.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all. And I think I'm not sure how well it goes over because I tend to have some pretty sort of radical beliefs and certain,
Well, yeah,
ideas in
that's
certain
fine.
areas. So
The and we had planned like next week I'm going to come over and do your show the same day and time. So this was kind of a chance to introduce you to folks that didn't really know who you were, and let them know you got a channel and stuff, which I've been putting your link through chat there, and I'll
awesome, thank you.
do it again.
I still have 2 years outstanding. I haven't done an intro video. I've been trying to do work on an intro video to actually tell people what my channel is about in a coherent way, and I just still haven't gotten there. So my
If,
apologies.
I mean, if you asked me what my channel is about, I probably couldn't tell you in one. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I would have to really think about it for a minute. I know, like, what my goals are. I'm pretty clear on that, but not every show is necessarily uh, actively pursuing those goals. I guess like sure, I expose a lot of harm and stuff that goes on within various religions, but mostly Christianity and mostly young Earth creationism because that's the thing I grew up with.
Mm.
But and like we just recently did the show where we talked about World Harvest Church and the stuff that goes on there and all that, and that is very much in pursuit of that goal. This show not so much about exposing harm, but one of my other goals is more to do with this one, where it's like normalizing the atheist community, and I would eventually like to see the term atheist not really carry any meaning, or especially connotation. We don't we don't have words for other things that people don't believe, and atheist is a word that for a lot of people has a negative connotation. And I grew up being taught that an atheist was a devil worshiper, which obviously makes no sense. But um, the Um, we don't use words like that normally, and but for this specific thing, they wanted to do this. But there's a whole historical thing there, and I'm actually going to start working on in the next week or so a series of video that talks about atheists in history and historical atheists and what they were doing and why and what the significance of that was. And some of them are good people, some of them aren't. I'll say that ahead of time. But
Mm-mm.
um, you know, for us, for those of us that understand what we mean by that term and stuff, we just agree a God doesn't exist. Being an atheist doesn't necessarily mean that you support secular humanism or that you're a good person or have good goals. I mean, but that'll be another time. I haven't got all that wrote yet.
Mm.
I've wrote a couple little pieces for it that I need to expand on some more, and then before I start recording them, so that I'll have enough padding to stay on top of it
Awesome.
regularly.
Awesome. Well,
But
I love historical topics. So, yeah.
yeah, and then like with the political show, I'm very much on the left in a lot of ways. Well, I'm definitely further left than your average Democrat, but the uh, the political show was almost out of necessity. I feel like because there's been this kind of blurring of those things, and so I started doing that just because it was such a serious thing that um, leading up to the last election, especially had the ability to affect so many people. So it was something that I did, but or I continue to do, and now it's just like that's what's in the news so much, and it has direct threats against marginalized or minority communities and direct threats against anybody who would speak out against religion and stuff. So it kind of became necessary. If I'm talking about exposing harmful things, that has to be one of them. So, but yeah. Anyway, not about me today. But
Well, I'm with you on all that stuff, if that matters. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now you told me you have a background in corrections, right?
a little, not
Yeah.
really corrections either. So let me make a correction there.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
I
now
worked
you.
I worked in a prison. I
Yeah.
was food service supervisor. So I supervised inmates making their own food, working for Aramark. I worked in the prison that Mike Tyson went through when he was having his jail problems back in the I guess that might have been late 90s, late very late 90s or mid to late 90s, something like that.
Well, I think it was like 90, 94,
Yeah.
95, somewhere in
Okay.
there.
Had to be later than that because that was, yeah, like maybe 96. I don't remember.
Yeah.
No, I had my kid by then. Anyways, beyond that, I was in that prison and I was working, and it was only not even for a whole year, but I learned a whole lot of lessons going through that system and in realizing that was not a place I wanted to remain on any side of it. To tell you the truth, my experience was I got along better with the inmates than I did the professional people working there.
Sure.
I
Well,
just saw them as mostly damaged, abused, thrown away, discarded type of people that were human and subject to human experiences and just, for whatever reason, fell where they were. There were many times I could have ended up in prison that I just didn't
me too.
for whatever reason.
But I did.
So yeah, yeah.
Um, I actually worked in the kitchen in one of the places I was in and prepared Airmark stuff. So it's you know the I have to say looking at some of the boxes and stuff that they send into the jails and prisons that um, say like that juiced stuff, the drink mix they used to send in had like a skull and crossbones on it, and it's like, oh yeah, and we just mix this up and give it to everybody. But I
Yeah,
think
well,
it was
they did canteen and they did food preparation and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of people requested some special stuff through canteen and things like that. Yeah.
yeah. Now see where I was at, we had at back in the early days, the early 2000s, we had um, Airmark was doing canteen and stuff too, and then they switched to a different company on that eventually
Mm,
that had a lot more stuff and was a lot better. I forget the name of that place,
gotcha. Yeah.
uh, but yeah, still the Airmark still had a lot of the other stuff going on, and then there was the place that served all the damn turkey stuff. Everything was turkey. There was and I'm serious. Like
Yeah.
you
I
had
don't doubt it. Yeah.
turkey bacon, turkey bologna, turkey sausage. You had other meats that didn't look like turkey but were, like the hamburgers was made of turkey. You had turkey 3 times a day on every tray, and it was super cheap for them to do it that way, and so not a great thing. And they would try to, shoot, that turkey it wasn't good.
Deterrence. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, they try to feed people for like less than 10 cents a day or something to give
Yeah.
them 3 meals in a whole day, and not a lot of choices in doing that,
Yeah.
and um, not a big fan of turkey to this day.
I don't blame you.
And I mean, like I eat turkey on Thanksgiving, and I don't hate it, but you won't see me buying any like turkey lunch meat or anything like that. Uh, I just don't. And turkey bacon I can do without ever seeing again. But
Yeah.
um, whatever. Uh, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. And yeah, Robin, I seen you. Dawn had a background in working in corrections a lot more and stuff. But I remember that both of you had said something about that and things,
Yeah.
and it was
Don's career is much longer than mine, and so yeah, mine was a short experience, and it taught me I didn't want to be there. So
yeah,
I left.
yeah. It's not a very nice place to work. Like the
The
I
fuck is
think it takes a couple of different types of people do well, in that kind of setting, and
Mm,
it's ones that actually want to help people and to have some kind of urge to do that and things, and then ones that want to have power over people, and everybody in between doesn't really make it very long because it's I mean, you're essentially asked to treat people like animals, and uh, or maybe you get a job to where you're working to do some kind of productive thing, teaching classes or different things. But for the most part, I don't know, and maybe a lot of that's related to my negative experience of it. So um,
well, if it means anything, a part of my own sort of philosophy today is I don't think nobody, period, should be subjected to what most jail, prison, imprisonment experiences are. I think it's dehumanizing, no matter what you did, you know. And there's a lot of underpinnings to why I feel that way.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's much better way, and I think we have countries that are giving us better examples of how to handle it too. That have more positive outcomes, more humanitarian outcomes, treat people with dignity, things like this. That I just don't think we do here in general.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, um, in Kentucky, the thing pretty much was you're property of the state now, and we'll do with you what we want. Is pretty much how it was viewed, and that there was no nothing to try and well, let me put it this way: you would go into a prison for committing a crime and go in to serve your time, and maybe somebody who had made a mistake or something, and come out a monster. A lot of times,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and obviously that's not everybody, but it's a lot.
Catching charges while you're in is a common thing. Like you
Yeah,
go in for a simple infraction and then all of a sudden you're in for longer because now you've tried to defend yourself in there. Might have hurt somebody, might have been caught up in, and now you've got more time. Yeah, the whole thing is like it's a feedback system and it's horrific, honestly.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, my first trip through the justice system, I learned more about making meth and how to get away with crimes than anything else in there.
yeah.
You take a bunch of people who have committed crimes and put them in a room together and just tell them to stay there. And what are they going to talk about other than committing crimes?
Yeah.
That's what they all have in common. So
Well,
um,
humans and their culture, crime is one of those things that can also be enculturated and glorified and, sometimes out of pragmatism, sometimes out of just like everybody else does, seeking the carrot that's dangling, all the carrots dangling in front of you that you want: money, fame, power, wealth, whatever, um, notoriety. Yeah. So,
yeah,
mm,
yeah. The thing that I seen that I dislike the most, and who cares what I think about it, I guess, but the uh coming from an area that's one of the worst drug areas in this country, the this push to try and lock their way up out of addiction and things, and just well, if they're in jail, they're not doing dope, which isn't always true. I was in a lot of places where there was more drugs in there than there was out of there. So
oh
that's
man, the place I worked was corrupt. It was so corrupt. I just in a short period of time there, I had so many stories. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, you're no. That's I've been in two different institutions where the person that ran it was arrested while I was there. So the well, the second one he wasn't arrested. He ran from him. I don't know. I imagine they eventually caught him, but the whole staff just up and left in the middle of the day at a halfway house, state ran facility though, and the U.S. Marshals showed up to arrest him and a couple of his higher ups there, and they just left.
Mm,
It's you know kind of crazy, and they just was like, well, this guy here, he's worked here for a long time, he runs it now, and it is just just as corrupt as the people that were in there. Uh, I don't know. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff go on with all that, but and because it's done to inmates, nobody ever really gives a shit.
yep. Dehumanizing them, that's, the first step. Then you feel
Yeah,
less bad about it. There's too many people that are just okay with throwing away people and locking the key and forgetting about them, or
yeah,
just putting them out of their sight, knowing that what's the one of the largest statistics of incarcerated people in the world. Um, it's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah. The amount of assaults that go on from staff to inmate is unreal too. It's just I don't know. There's a lot of horrible things there that need fixed, and I think most people agree on that, but they never get better. They get worse normally, because it's become this thing of just warehousing individuals, and you know there's no incentive to try and actually rehabilitate anyone. It's just warehouse them until their time's up, and send them back out, and you've taken somebody who committed a petty crime and made a violent criminal out of them in many cases by doing that. In the state of Kentucky, they actually changed some of the laws surrounding that, because you can't, like, if you have less than 5 years, you can't be sent to an actual prison. You have to you have to do your time in a jail somewhere, which is shittier time, but less violent, for sure. But they did that because, there was these young kids going in with 1 and 2 years and ended up doing life sentences, or and never getting out, or getting out, and they should have never been violent offenders, but ended up becoming violent offenders. And so they made those changes to try and fix some of that. I'm not sure how well it really worked, and they did that back in the, I don't know, the mid 2000s, somewhere, 2005, something like that.
Hmm.
They started making those changes. But anyway, enough about that. Not a great topic. The Oh yeah, Robin's mentioning their privatization of prisons is so corrupt. Yeah,
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
if you want to take it on a positive note, there are positive stories out there. There are places that are doing, research and trying to work towards more humanitarian treatment, and it's just not prevalent enough. At least here, in many places, some other countries are doing it much better than any other place in the world. Um, so there are positives,
yeah,
but yeah, there's also the fact that we just have an abhorrence going on right now with the populations and with the treatment of most people while we figure this shit out. Um,
yeah. The
but yeah.
Well, I know something. We can talk about religion in these places, because at least
Oh
where
yeah.
I'm at, you're kind of expected to be a Christian. Many of the places, the only thing you're really allowed to have is a Bible anyway, and it reminds me of the Shawshank thing. But the they I was in places where they would let preachers just go around and go into the cells, actually. Now, to me, that was weird, because usually there was like some kind of room somewhere that they would take you to, and you do it like, anybody want to go to church here, come on. But then later it was, no, we'll just let the preachers go right in the cells. So whether
Mm-hmm.
you wanted it or not, you were getting Christianity that night. And uh, during at least part of that, I had already become an atheist. And every time it got so old to where, like, these pastors would come in and, son, are you a Christian? And no, I'm not. And I don't want to be. Thanks. You know, just kind of give them that number. And, well, why not? And have to, because that's where I'm literally sitting on my bed where I sleep. And here I have to answer for why I don't believe in your, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I consider nonsense at that point. And
Vulnerability is often the target. So
yeah,
that should tell people something. That should give you red flags that often the target of faith, religion, these types of things are seeking the vulnerable. Indoctrination, children. It's easy to teach children to just not question things from when they've known anything. Um, you know,
well,
and in that same way, if you're desperate in your life, sometimes it's easier to turn to religion than to I don't know. It
yeah.
just seems that it seeks out desperation. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It preys on the vulnerable. The uh, One of the things that I hear from a number of people is, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I could talk about those things, and I don't know how you're able to, answer about those things. And I guess the answer to that is that it's kind of always been that way, right? Like, from the time that I became an atheist, it's been, oh, you're an atheist, you need to explain yourself, and you need to do it to my liking.
yeah.
And that's not always easy to do, especially early on, when you just at the point where like you're like, well, I don't know what's going on, but I don't believe that story's
mm,
true. Uh,
mm,
and so it can be. I mean, I imagine for some people it can even be kind of traumatizing because it's like here you're in a whole room full of and 99% of the people, literally 99% of the people in Kentucky prisons are religious. So, um, you've got a whole room full of religious people, and they want you to account for why you're not. And not only that, but you think what they believe is horse shit,
mm, mm.
and so you learn to choose your words carefully and how to explain yourself without ended up getting beat to death, which didn't always work out. I got beat up once over it, but
That's what I was reading. Robin said that I giggled a little bit. So sorry to hear that.
yeah,
I tell, and God, like some of the people here who know me are going to be like, oh God, here goes that same story again. But I have a story about primatology that I associate with what you just talked about, where you have a group of primates and they figure out a tool to do something better, than say, for instance, just whatever they do naturally. Like, for instance, a stick to get ants out of a hill. It's a new technology for apes, right? And all the primates will adopt that technology because it works for them. Now, along come another guy who figured out a new tool, who's like either can do the same thing or better, but it's different. It's different. The rest of the group will shun, even if it's better than what they're producing now, because it's not what everybody else does. The group will shun them. So it's
yeah,
very hard. It's much harder to adopt newer technologies in that sense. This
right.
is this is kind of the same sort of absurdity of that notion, where if someone's doing something different from the group, you should question them, ostracize them, make them feel guilty, shame them, take advantage of their vulnerabilities, yada yada yada. So, um,
Yeah, the I think it's more accepted and easier to continue with the status quo rather than to cause any kind of change. And uh, we often just kind of hand wave that away with people are set in their ways and whatever the case may be. But there's a lot more going on than that, and it has roots in evolution and stuff where this these ancestors did this to survive, so we don't need to be better. We can just do that to survive. That's what's required. But yeah, so change is hard to come by whenever everybody thinks they already have the perfect tool for the
well,
job.
I
But
guess that's interesting because that's kind of the political dichotomy there too, right? You have your side of people who don't like change, are traditional, and then you have the side who adapt to change very well and progression, and it's kind of one of those interesting dichotomies.
right, yeah, yeah, and there'll be these appeals to the old ways. That's very much what our current administration tries to say, which I don't really think that's their motivation, but that's the thing they at least put forward is, well, things were so much better in the 50s, when we did things like this. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of things weren't so great about the 50s
Yeah,
if
true.
we look at that. And so, but they, yes, Robin, yes, I'll let people know that's going on. The Robin's got a debate coming up
I'm
over on
excited.
Proverbs channel later this month, and uh, debating whether Proverbs Guys is the name of the channel, debating about whether the founders of the country based it on Christian ideals. Of course,
Mm.
apologists love to argue that when it's just not based in reality in any way. But does that matter? Again, we're talking about change, and so because Christianity is so prevalent, that change doesn't always have to be forward or that status quo doesn't have to be forward; it can also be um, adapted and projected onto the past as well. Which in that case is very much what we see. And yeah, 1950 was the pinnacle of human history. Yeah, no. Was the USA founded as a Christian nation? Yeah. Uh, and but yeah, Robin's doing that over on Proverbs, guys, and so that's coming up. I'll as we get closer to that, I'll share some stuff and everything, Robin. That way, it's fresh on people's mind when it gets a little bit closer. But Freemason country, yeah. Um, I don't know that that means anything. I used to think it did, but I think modern day Freemasons are much more scary than the historical ones personally. But all that Illuminati stuff and everything else, I don't really prescribe to. But the my grandfather was one of the highest ranked Freemasons on the eastern side of the country, so um, he wasn't all of those crazy things that are said about the Freemasons. Although he was a strange man. He carried a case of grenades in the trunk and uh, carried
Well,
around
there's that.
stuff. And he thought he thought the black, brown, and yellow people were going to take over the world, and had some pretty racist ideals. And uh, yeah, that's another story for another time, though. Um, that's the family I come from. But
I have a very similar family background. It's,
yeah,
very diverse people, a lot of either overt or hidden racism, bigotry. So, yeah,
yeah.
I find myself lucky that I look back on things like that and cringe,
Oh
rather
yeah.
than saying, "Ooh, that's nice. Let's do that." you know.
Well, I had grew up, and all growing up, my grandfather hated the color yellow, and like, but it like yellow, like if you wore a yellow shirt or something over to my grandparents' house, he'd be like, "I'm gonna take that shirt outside and burn it," and
Mm,
um, would really want to do that, and I never really connected what that was about until later on. But like he used to sit and watch CNN just so he could yell about Connie Chung because
mm,
uh, his he had been involved he was on a gunner on the Yorktown during Pearl Harbor during
wow.
leading up to World War II, and the Yorktown was very notable ship during that event. But and then my uncle, his son, was a POW in Vietnam for a couple of years, and so he was very racist towards yellow skinned people.
Mm.
And I didn't make the connection until I was older that that's why he hated the color yellow. Like it extended to that, like real hate of anything the color yellow. And my grandfather did a lot of great things, and um,
Yeah, it doesn't justify it, but it
yeah,
definitely makes you think like, you understand it. You can understand in the trauma of war why
it,
someone would come out with something that might be akin to a phobia of people they were fighting against,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
He did a lot of
Um,
great things. His views on race were not one of them.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and was an extremely religious guy. He over the years he wore out several sets of the Bible on cassette tape because when he went to bed every night he listened to it every night
Mm,
all night,
mm.
the Bible on cassette tape. And every couple Christmases somebody would have to buy him another set of them because he wore them out
Wore 'em
playing
out.
all the time. And he built churches for free for places around here and built the boys club down the road from where I live now, and founded two fire departments, and was the first fire chief and police chief and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he did a lot of things, but his views on race were not anything great to speak of, which I don't try to justify that. Just that that's what it was.
We appreciate the good things and we try to project or progress forward. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what, so.
But I didn't understand that until later on, and it was something that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's doesn't kind of changes my view of my childhood a little bit, but
Well, I would say in a good way, in an
yeah,
enlightening way. You know, a way to make you recognize that all that stuff is kind of critically, if you critically think about it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you can also, yeah, like we said, we can also where it comes from the trauma of war and stuff too. I don't know if I can necessarily blame anybody
yeah,
for that.
and
So
yeah, the I'm sorry, I'm reading something in
no
chat,
worries, man.
uh, but yeah, I mean, those things. When you look at stuff like that, though, historically there was a whole lot of that, and especially we talk about the 1950s being the uh, the pinnacle of American history, as Robin said. Um, those kind of things. I'm glad that the status quo didn't continue. You know that people were able to change and stuff, and I think that that's one of the things that, in fact, I said earlier today is that I think that people are able to change. I was able to grow up and change away from a family that did a lot of those things, and in fact, I would say that my family members that are still living are not even that way anymore.
Hmm.
I grew up in a racist household, but my dad isn't living anymore, but my mom certainly isn't that way now. The So I don't know. I'm glad that um, we are able to adapt and change as needed to form a better society. Not because of religion and things like Christianity, but in spite of it, because I think that things like religion obviously promote going on with the status quo, because when you've got a book that tells you all the answers to everything and how it's supposed to be and how to live and how to do everything that doesn't change, it's not very progressive. You're kind of stuck with that, and so I think that I think that we do, as much as people want to say that Christianity is this thing that drives all these different values and all this other stuff. I think that just looking throughout history shows that that isn't true. Uh, so
Yeah, I get stuck pretty immediately when, I mean, for myself, I come from an empiricist point of view. I take the empirical, I take evidence and observation, what the sciences and, the academics teach us, rationalism, skepticism, fallibilism, all these things. And, so from a perspective of I just accept this thing to be true without questioning it and without evidence, well, evidence is questionable because then you get into the standard of evidence. And if somebody's standard of evidence is the Bible is evidence that God exists, so therefore God exists, or God exists, therefore the Bible is divine. And, we have totally different standards of evidence. And you lost me already. I can sit and listen and I can be as interested as the next person from a historical standpoint, from a human psychology, sociology standpoint. But as far as believing any of those things, not for me, thanks.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm actually glad you said that, because the standards of evidence is something that's came up recently in a number of ways, and I think is something that often gets looked over, especially with people who have conversations with apologists and things like that. They're the first of all, I think it's a failure to look at an apologist or a Christian and say you have no evidence that any of that's true, because that's not the case. They have evidence. It's just kind of poor evidence. It's not very good evidence, and it's for sure not evidence sufficient to make the claim that they're making. But to set whenever you set and say you have no evidence, um, well, they can show you that's not true, and so in a forum where people are watching what you're doing, sure, us within the atheist community see that and we're like, yeah, okay, whatever, like they don't they have no good evidence and that's what they mean and whatever. But to the other people watching that, to the theist and especially the theist who may be on the fence, um they see what you said as dishonest.
Mm.
They do have evidence. You weren't honest about that, and they don't realize that you haven't pointed out that, yeah, okay, you have evidence, but it's shit evidence. It's crap. Like,
Right. Yeah. I've gotten comfortable with just saying, you know what, by my standard of evidence, I don't see evidence, but that's by my standard of evidence. If you have a different standard of evidence for me, then maybe that's evidence to you.
yeah,
Fair enough. No problem with that. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. Um, I don't, that's just not where I come from. I'm not a right by all means kind of person. I'm more of a live and let live, cooperate. You believe what you want to believe as long as you're not trying to impose anything on me. I won't impose anything on but that breaks down too sometimes. So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's often a thing of like, because they want to try and drag science down onto the same playing field as religious claims, but then at the same time, throughout that, prop it up above it too. And so you'll get like, well, there's all this evidence for evolution, for example. One of the most supported theories in science, and um, there's all this evidence, and it is sufficient to make the claim that the theory of evolution does seem to be the best explanation for the diversity of life, while uh, other thing to the exclusion of many other things. And um, the argument, but my book says this is, yeah, you do have a book that says that, and it's an old book, and okay, that's the evidence you want to put forward. But when we look at these two things, this whole body of evidence that expands across many disciplines and works to create a model that works in the world that we live in, or your book says a thing that you believe is true, and okay, but which one of those is probably the case? Absent absent as much bias as possible, it would be the one that's supported and substantiated and has you know lots and lots of novel testable predictions that have been shown to be true. I mean, and it's able to at some point, and I know it seems kind of circular. Well, you know the predictions in evolution are evidence of evolution, but it's not, of course, and we all understand that. But a lot of times, depending on who you're talking to, they may not get those things. And so whenever you say you start right off with, well, I've got evolution on my side and you've got no evidence whatsoever, and you create kind of a hostile situation from the beginning, which isn't really productive for convincing anybody of anything. It's just two people arguing about something, which sometimes I guess could have an effect, but more often than not, there's better ways to approach those things, I think. And I'm guilty of doing that too. And people will be like, well, I have evidence of this, and I'll be like, no, you don't. Let's see it. And then they say, and I'm like, okay, what I should have said is, you don't have any good evidence that that's true. You have anecdotal stories and belief and faith and some of the one of my favorite things is when they say, well, my family member was sick, and my grandma prayed for them over and over, and my grandma prayed, and that she would wake up and everything would be fine, and that's what happened. So therefore God, and it's like, yeah, but how many times did those prayers not work? Like, can we talk about all the times that Granny sat and prayed and nothing happened, or your family member had a worse day? Like
Yeah,
because
I used the meme before with or Downey Jr. where he found his keys to his car, and I'm like, the kid died of cancer, but oh, thank God I found my keys.
yeah, yeah, uh, and that's when he shared the story in the news of this old guy. His house burnt down, and everything burned up in his bedroom and all this, and it was burnt really bad. But the family Bible was still there in some somewhat intact form, and it was because an angel was looking over and all. And it's like, yeah, do you know what you just said? You're like, yeah, yeah, you're. It's a miracle, and the whole family died, but at least the Bible's okay, right? Like, it's one of those things that as somebody who doesn't believe, you stop and you're like, wait a minute, what'd you just say? Um, and you don't want to be insensitive or mean to somebody who's telling you a story that might be an emotional thing for them or whatever, but it's uh it's
Well, funny enough, man, when I was young, I wasn't indoctrinated with God. Like I had heard God, but nobody had forced me or really explained to me philosophically, even or to any degree, what God meant. Um, I was neurodivergent and all over the place, so no idea what these concepts were, what they meant, what you know. Anyways, a lot of the best people I've known in my life, of course, have been from religious communities. My best friend from high school, um, he's probably now more on the atheist side, maybe agnostic, maybe somewhere spiritual or something. Um, family friends who, when I was being neglected as a kid, would step up and like, hey, there's some football going on at the Baptist church down the street. Why don't Bethel Baptist or whatever? Why don't you come with me and play with it and meet people? And so a lot of good experiences there, a lot of good people. Um, so I generally don't judge people who are religious, who are faithful. I really want to see your actions and who you are as a person over any of that. Um, so
Yeah, your choice of belief doesn't tell me a whole lot, especially coming from an area where indoctrination is so put on so thickly, and like it's I get that's another thing is like a lot of atheists who themselves are former believers will talk about, well, you believe this silly stupid thing, and yeah, and or even for the philosophical conversation, you believe in this irrational thing that's and I would say that belief in a god is usually irrational, but that doesn't mean that the believer themselves is irrational.
right.
Rational people can hold irrational beliefs of all types.
Yeah, so I think there have been studies around this, and it's interesting. It brings up a topic like that I often bring up, which is harm reduction. And the intention behind harm reduction is not to, like, for in this particular instance, wouldn't be to completely rip your faith foundations out under you and say there is no God, God's not real. If you're a very faithful person, because that could really harm somebody. And we have evidences in other societies where if you do this and it's a heavily religious society, you can actually cause them mental strife and suffering and you know loss of purpose and depression, and all these things can come along with it.
And it's
So
also completely ineffective.
yeah,
Uh,
so it's I agree, it's like it's a thing you have to deal with delicately as best as you can.
So I had read whenever I was doing some research on percentages of adults in the United States that believe different things and the amount to which they believe those things. And I had came across this sociology study, well, multiple sociology studies that talked about whenever you attack somebody's belief system, especially when you do it very aggressively, usually the outcome of that is you drive those people deeper into a fundamentalism and even fanaticism by approaching it that way. And so there's kind of been this argument that sometimes atheists who push back against these things and stuff may actually, in the short term, make things more problematic
Worse, yeah.
and more harmful.
Divide people, yeah, push people across the other side. I mean, so recently I went down, I'm a big psychology fan, and I started reading about something called psychological reaction theory, which says exactly what you just said, is like if somebody holds a belief and you counter really offensively against their belief, you're more likely to push them deeper. They'll double down and firmly believe and get argumentative, and all those same psychological behaviors that we see over and over and over again. So
Yeah,
I think you're pretty spot on there. So
yeah. So I think that, I mean, because it's not wrong to correct bad ideas with good ideas. That's not what I mean in any way. But the the ways that we go about doing that can have effects that we don't see because it doesn't, it's not intuitive, like that you're by challenging your belief and telling you the things that are wrong with it, that I'm going to actually increase the your belief. I think that um, I think that we can see an example of this in the political world today, where the um, the MAGA movement, right? So the magnet movement, the MAGA movement
magnet.
is yeah, fair enough, whatever. Is definitely shrinking in numbers, but in many cases, many groups are becoming more extreme in that, and that kind of follows that pattern. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad idea to challenge the number one, the racist and bigoted ideas that are involved there in the background of those things. I mean, you can't. It's not a bad thing to push back against those, and some people do need to hear those things, and there will be some non-zero number of people that are affected positively by that. So it's kind of a game of weighing things out, but I don't think the truth is ever a bad course to take.
I'm generally a pacifist, I like to say, unless I need to pacifist, right? I in those instances, like I want to lead with empathy and sympathy and understanding. And unfortunately, I wish I were more peaceful in my operation when I'm confronted with combatants. I usually respond with combatants in kind. Uh, so it's more of a defensive reaction than it is, but when I'm engaging with somebody with topics that are touchy like this, about like the politics going on in the country and the big issues like the invasion of Venezuela and stuff, or your religion or whatever it is, I kind of want to try and meet people where they are and engage lightly. I've been taught and read about things like nonviolent communication, and um, been through a bunch of communities that do a lot of communication strategy stuff that are fun, foundations in psychology, and just read a lot of psychology. And I think the best outcomes that I see is, no matter who you're engaging with, no matter what you're engaging with them on, if you can lead with understanding and empathy and listening, that you're more increasing your chance of having better outcomes than just devolving into argument or pushing people into their beliefs or their silos of belief or whatever it is. That's a real hard thing to do though, because there's some really what I would consider, you'd have to break this down a lot, but ignorant attitudes out there. So
Yeah. Yeah. And not limited to a particular belief system or lack
yeah,
thereof.
no, not at all. No, it goes across the board.
Yeah.
Uh, so
The I think that there's obviously there's a lot more about that conversation that I'm not an expert in that area to really dive a whole lot deeper. I can look at what the studies and the science says about it, and accept the findings that are supported by evidence and reason. But there's it's a big wide subject, and there's lots of things at play, to do with culture and there's other variables and things. So when I say those things, it's not like, well, this is, you know, if you challenge things, you're making it worse. That there's obviously a big nuanced conversation to have about how that works and whatever. And I'm not that guy. I'm just the guy that read the papers and
yeah,
but
yeah.
it is interesting that it's that way, and I think like especially with the atheist community on YouTube, which you're making content too, that it at least challenges some of those things um, that it is those the varying perspectives and the backgrounds and the different cultures that people come from all together talking about those things that makes us stronger. That we persist in on a platform in a country where atheist is not a good thing to most people. It's a has a negative connotation to it for a lot of people, and so um, the fact that we're able to persist in that is quite telling that where our strengths are. But say hi to everybody, Laura. Hi.
Hello.
But but yeah, it's a it's a nuanced conversation, and there's a lot of great studies done about those things to do with the not only the sociology but the psychology, as we mentioned, and really interesting stuff when you get into it.
Mm.
But yeah, so
Just quickly, there's another channel just on that same topic. There's another channel that I watch. Guy from I think Australia fell out of like some commercial news media reporting whatever and started his own channel, Josh Sepps, and he had this one person on there. Her name was Meg Schmaker, something like that, and she tells a story of she was a fire person, so she worked at her local fire department, and then somehow in the progress of her life she got into these other areas and ended up over in the Middle East working with extremist radicalized uh, people from the regions, and she ended up showing caring and understanding to them, and some of them were able to be deprogrammed and stop and actually start to interact in human ways, and so I think in any circumstance people can be shown the right caring and understanding and led out. I don't think it's going to happen for everybody. um, but I think yeah, that's just where I come from. I think it's a better way to go than to just engage in the hate and
yeah,
the anger and all that stuff. So
yeah. I mean, I think, and I think there's often a within the atheist community itself, there's these misconceptions about why we engage on these topics and not other more useful topics or whatever at the time. And again, I think that just comes down to the individual. Like some people enjoy debates for the sake of debates, like just doing the research and learning about something and preparing an argument about that thing is an act that in itself isn't harming anyone, isn't causing harm, and at the same time just enjoy doing it. And there's a lot of at the same time, there's a lot of atheists out there that'll say we should never do these debates. They're awful and harmful and all this, and maybe that's a debate itself, or a conversation to be had at least. And I think there are some debates that are bad. Like I think that there's some dangers of debating some people whose goals aren't to honestly debate the topic, and
Mm,
that's where I think when people are acting dishonestly and stuff that you can get into, you end up just giving somebody a platform to spout bad ideas, or even worse, to put forward bigotry and hate and stuff like that. There's again not there's a non-zero number of apologists who do that sort of thing. So knowing a bit about what you're getting into and stuff is important. But
mm, mm,
uh, having conversations on a topic that's so influential to society and everything as it is, isn't a bad thing. I mean, if you know, even if you're not really going to change anything in that one conversation or whatever. Of course, I don't think for most people that's their goals anyway within doing it, but um, it's okay to have conversations about important topics, like and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're just wrong.
yeah. Well, I've always been an overly serious person,
Yeah.
so always willing to dig into the deep topics that were always taboo. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that doesn't mean that there's not irresponsible ways to have conversations about those
Right.
topics, right? Like,
Right.
you can, if you're not going to do the due diligence and the stuff to have that conversation, then yeah, you run the possibility of actually doing more harm than good. If you're, ignorant about what the possibilities are, then yeah, you can. There's things you may not be aware of and stuff that can cause more problems than good. But I think that in general, I'm referring to the responsible conversation there, not just any conversation.
Mm,
Obviously, you can say the person yelling and hollering cuss words at theists is having a conversation, but not a very beneficial one. Uh, yeah, there you go, Dave. Dave popping his stuff there in
I don't.
chat.
I would level set that in one way and say that much of my childhood was spent around people who communicate being angry at each other and cursing at each other, and that's just normal. So that's one aspect. If somebody's just being a jerk just because that's the way they are, I'm not saying it's going to go well because I don't like those kind of
Yeah.
things. And
Well, I mean,
I'll usually start off by saying, "Hey, I don't like this. Why don't you tone it down or something?" you know? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think how we talk to each other, like how the jokes and things I may say to my girlfriend, for example,
Right.
like
Yeah. If you have
wouldn't be
rapport or
appropriate
something. Yeah.
for as a joke to someone else,
Hmm.
or the way that you know my family may sit down at dinner and feel that it's okay to sit there and cuss and carry on about whatever, whereas some people would find that extremely offensive at the
Hmm.
dinner table. So I think that there's
It's really
variation even
it's
within
really
that.
hard because there's even people out there, a lot of people who are just and I hope this doesn't go over wrong, but socially obtuse, because of whatever neurodivergent thing is going on. They're just very, it's just how they are because they're uncomfortable in social circumstances and just trying to involve themselves as way. Yeah, I don't know, man. The spectrum of human behaviors is so broad. It's hard to interpret
Yeah,
those things. I
yeah,
generally There's one principle from another community that I'm in that I really like, And it's basically always try to take anything anyone says in the best interpretation possible. Don't try to assume harm or bad intent, malice, anything like that. I think that's a pretty good principle to try and engage with. Sometimes it's very hard, I agree, but
Well, that and if you go the opposite way with that, it shuts down conversation, whereas that
yeah.
opens up avenues to have more conversation, which it can be a good thing. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I think that uh, I think that and I've said this before, but like I think that there's this idea that you need to put everybody in their own little box, like or you need to put people in boxes all the time of the the lowest common denominator, and when we do that with people, unfortunately, it leads to some bad ideals and things, and you get some historically bad things to come from it. But the as humans, we do that to some extent with everything anyway, and it's just comparison. Like we compare things to other things we've experienced in order to then form whatever our initial impression of those things will be. But like you have to be careful about that because you start looking for ever smaller boxes to put people into until eventually we get to talking about again marginalized and minority communities and stuff where you've then minimized those things even further to maybe not intentionally take away from their lives and their struggles and the important nuance of that has to do with those groups, but you really limit conversation by trying to do that as well, and it's just there's there's a time and a place, I guess. There's ways to and times to do that that's just fine and works, and in other ways you have to be more careful about especially stereotypes and things of that sort influencing your decisions, which we're human, we're going to have bias on a lot of things. We just try our best to limit those whenever you're talking about making rational decisions and clear thinking and all that. You try to limit your biases and not not make a thing worse. But yeah, I'm rambling.
No,
uh,
it's all right. So another Jeetism is that I quote Robert Sapolsky a lot. I'm a big fan of his. And you were talking about categories, and I just heard him talking about some of this on some of his shows recently. That there's a biological evolutionary component to the way that we categorize the world, the way that we sort of put things in their pockets and their places. And he has this other one quote that he always says that I love. It's he's like, facts are arbitrary lines in the sand, but facts are great when we're talking about facts, but then we put too much importance in the facts and we forget that they're arbitrary lines in the sand.
yeah.
I think it's also Forrest Valkai has another one that he sort of quoted at one point, that all models are wrong. Some just appear more right. It's all this just
Yeah.
categorization that we do in the blur, the smear, the spectrum that is reality. We try to draw those lines. And when I
Yeah.
think about categorizing and over categorizing and labeling and generalizing and over generalizing, I just think about collateral damage.
Ah.
It's always the collateral damage that comes along with those categories and generalizations and labels and that
Yeah.
concern me. I try to steer away from labels. I can talk about labels when we're talking about labels, but when we talk about we can also talk about the collateral damage with those labels and say things like, not every right wing person is a horrible person, shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, um,
Yeah, there's again there's different you get into the minutia of it to where there's times where it's fitting and that conversation is appropriate, And then whenever you try to start doing that, like um, socially though, with things that people don't make decisions about, it's where you get into some of the other stuff that's not so great, and you see things like specifically what I was referring to earlier was things like social Darwinism, which obviously was a horrible ideal in the past, and led to things like eugenics and all that. But
Mm.
um, again, not the conversation we need to have.
Hey man, I'm an old man, and
Yeah,
my nature functions are calling me.
yeah.
I don't know if you're open to having other people join in here. We could have a larger room, or
That's
if you want to cut it off or whatever, it's up to you.
well, I was actually going to go ahead and start heading towards the wrap up here, and so if you want to do that, um, we can do that. Actually, if you want, what you can do is, if you want, real quick, to tell people, where to find you and all that stuff, and I'll put it in chat and everything, and then you can go ahead and go do that. I'll close out the show, and you can, if you come back, I'll still be here after the show's over for a few minutes, but that way we can do it that way. So, where can they find you, and what are you doing out there?
I'm on a lot of different platforms. Probably the easiest place, the most of my stuff right now is on YouTube. You can find me YouTube at Jeet Kune Show, spelled like Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do with show at the end. It's a play on the words. It's meant to be kind of a variety show of things that I make. It's not reached what I'd like it to be yet. I'd like to get more serious with it and have more engagement in the platform and the content, make more content. I have a few things coming up, as you said. Joe's going to be there next week. We're going to do a show together. It'll probably be pre-recorded and released later. Um, but then I'm on a bunch of other platforms, Bluesky, um, TikTok. I do some TikTok stuff now these days. Um, but yeah, that's it. And again, I just want engagement. The whole point of the platform is it may never reach the place that I want it to be. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And it's in that Taoist Buddhist sense. That's the whole kind of. Now, the absurdity there is I'm not a spiritual person at all. So don't be fooled by any of that. As we said earlier, I'm an agnostic atheist. But I use it in the sense that it's driven some martial arts philosophy and theory, and I love martial arts, into that a lot. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling now. Come join me if you want. My Discord server is open. If you go to my YouTube channel, go to the details, you can find my Discord server in a lot of different platforms. Feel free to join. It's open for anybody. My main rule there is just be cool. I don't like combatants. I don't care who's right or wrong necessarily. I just don't want combatants. That's all.
Yeah,
I want to cooperate.
yeah.
That's kind of my thing. But
All
yeah,
right.
thank you very much. It was awesome, Joe. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no, and great having you on, and great getting to talk to you. And I think we had a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. The Everybody else out there, like I said, I'll do a thing with Jeet next week that, like he said, will be released at a later date or whatever. And so keep an eye out for that, and go over there and subscribe for sure. As for this channel, it's Monday. I may do a members thing in the next day or two. Speaking of members, also, I wanted to tell you guys, some of you that are members know this already, but I redid almost all the emojis and all that stuff. So there's new stuff going on with that. And so if you want a membership, they're available. You can click join down there or whatever. But, whatever. If you're new here and you liked what I did, just like and subscribe. That'd be great. I will be on Thursday for what I call Politicality, a political show we do, and we've got a new co-host coming in for that show, and should be some fun with her background and education and stuff on some of those things. We should be able to work some pretty good conversations out of it. So. And it's been a while since we did that show, so there's plenty to talk about, especially this week, as you all know, I'm sure. So stay tuned for that crap. That's all I got. Thanks for coming, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it, man.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, everyone.